Under the heat of a mild spring sun, the concrete wall gleams like a pale riverbank of stone. Along its base, a living mosaic begins to stir, dozens upon dozens of tiny red and black bodies arranging themselves in erratic but purposeful formations. The firebugs, Pyrrhocoris apterus, are among the most familiar insects in European cities, yet few pause to notice the intricate order behind their restless gatherings. What appears as random motion, a tangle of crawling dots against a warm wall, is in truth a choreography built on thermodynamics, social signaling, and evolutionary display. The camera draws closer, revealing the pattern that gives them their name. Each firebug's body glows a lacquered scarlet, divided by symmetrical black markings, circles, triangles, and lines that seem painted with deliberate precision. It is not decoration nor camouflage, but the language of warning. The contrast between red and black is a universal broadcast across the animal kingdom, a message that says, "I am not worth your trouble." This phenomenon, known as aposematism, evolved as a pact between predator and prey. Birds, amphibians, and small mammals learn through experience that bright color often means chemical defense, and while firebugs are not truly venomous or armed with stingers, their scent and taste are enough to convince a predator otherwise. Evolution rewards those who are seen and spared. Yet these insects are not here solely to show off. The wall they cling to is more than a convenient backdrop, it is a thermal engine. Firebugs are ectothermic creatures. Their internal temperature is a direct reflection of their surroundings. The warmth of sunlit stone allows them to awaken their metabolism after a long, sluggish winter beneath fallen leaves. This is why they gather in such conspicuous numbers on spring mornings. Their bodies act as solar panels, absorbing and radiating heat. The collective mass amplifies the effect. When one insect warms, its heat bleeds into another, and soon the entire cluster reaches an active threshold that enables feeding, mating, and exploration. Grouping in this sense becomes a survival technology. The same instinct that drives wildebeests across the savannah or penguins to huddle in Antarctic blizzards finds a miniature parallel here in a handful of insects no larger than a fingernail. Each individual gains energy efficiency by sharing proximity. Even the geometry of their positioning matters. They tend to align along walls and tree bases facing south, where sunlight remains most stable throughout the day. What looks like a casual crowd is actually an evolved formula for thermoregulation. If one observes long enough, another rhythm emerges, the slow, deliberate tapping of firebugs probing the ground with their beaks. These beaks, technically called rostrums, are needle-like feeding tools adapted for piercing and sucking. Firebugs belong to the true bug order Hemiptera, and unlike beetles, they feed not by chewing but by drawing out liquid nutrients. Their preferred targets are seeds, particularly those of linden trees and mallows, whose fallen fruits scatter across pavements and lawns. Using the rostrum, the firebug punctures the seed coat and injects digestive enzymes that liquefy the contents. What follows is a kind of silent siphoning, a slow drink of plant oil and starch. To human eyes, the process is nearly invisible. To the insect, it is the difference between sustenance and starvation. Because they are often seen on cultivated ground, firebugs have been falsely accused of being agricultural pests. In truth, they are ecological recyclers. Their diet consists largely of fallen or dried seeds that no longer contribute to plant reproduction, and they occasionally scavenge from dead insects. This scavenging habit, combined with their tendency to gather near human structures, gave rise to myths that they invade crops or homes in destructive swarms. But their jaws are too delicate to harm living plants or fabric, and their colonies rarely last beyond a few weeks once temperatures stabilize. They are opportunists, not invaders, the street-level custodians of urban micro-wilds. From above, a breeze stirs the group into motion. Among the moving dots, one scene stands out: two firebugs connected end to end, walking in slow tandem across the wall. This peculiar behavior, often mistaken by casual observers for a conjoined deformity, is their mating ritual. The male and female remain locked together tail to tail, their abdomens joined by the reproductive organs while they wander in search of safer ground. The posture allows them to mate while maintaining mobility, ensuring that neither becomes easy prey. It is an ungainly procession, a red train gliding across pale stone, but within it lies a delicate evolutionary compromise between vulnerability and persistence. Their coupling may last several hours, sometimes stretching into an entire day. During this time, the pair continues feeding and basking, behaving as if the connection were ordinary. The female stores the sperm within specialized organs, releasing it gradually to fertilize multiple batches of eggs over the following weeks. Once separated, she deposits her eggs in clusters beneath bark or within leaf litter, where warmth and humidity are most stable. There, another generation begins its silent countdown to emergence. Zoom out, and the wall becomes a stage for countless variations of the same story. Some individuals rest motionless, aligning themselves to catch the last rays of afternoon sun. Others wander between cracks in the pavement, probing for food or seeking shade. The rhythm of their society is simple but precise: warmth, feeding, reproduction, and retreat. At dusk, the colony disperses into crevices and soil, their colors fading into the dim light. By morning, they return, reassembling in near identical positions as if following a magnetic script. Even their appearance plays multiple roles. The black patches on their wings absorb heat efficiently, while the red pigment acts as both warning and shield. Studies have shown that darker individuals heat faster but also risk overheating, suggesting a balance between color pattern and climate. In cooler regions, populations tend to have more extensive black areas. In hotter ones, the red dominates. Over generations, natural selection adjusts their palette, like a painter correcting the tone for light and shadow. This dual purpose, to warm and to warn, reflects a broader truth about insect evolution. Adaptations rarely serve a single function. Every trait, from color to shape to behavior, exists at the intersection of multiple environmental pressures. The firebug's striking appearance, therefore, is not merely a defense mechanism but a thermal strategy written in pigment. Their social clustering is not just congregation, but a living solution to the physics of small bodies losing heat. Their feeding method, seemingly specialized, allows them to exploit a food source ignored by many competitors. Beneath the lens of simplicity lies sophistication. A city wall becomes a stand-in for ancient rocks once used by their ancestors. A patch of grass beneath a tree becomes a miniature savanna where sunlight dictates survival. Even within the confines of human landscapes, the firebug's life is a testament to how nature adapts, persists, and finds equilibrium in altered worlds. They are proof that evolution's reach extends into every crack between stones, every discarded seed husk, every inch of sunlight touching human civilization. By late afternoon, the temperature drops. One by one, the red columns dissolve, their members slipping into the seams between soil and concrete. The wall returns to stillness, marked only by faint trails of dust. But the memory of movement lingers, a quiet echo of life using physics, color, and cooperation to thrive in places most overlook. Tomorrow, when the sun warms the stone again, the firebugs will reassemble, red on gray, warmth on cold, ancient instinct on modern pavement. In their tiny congregations, we glimpse the persistence of an older world still pulsing beneath ours. Deep inside a mound of decomposing leaves, where steam rises from rot and the air is thick with the scent of fermenting cellulose, a sound erupts that seems far too large for its source. It is not the chirp of a cricket or the whir of wings. It is a hiss, low, steady, and unmistakably alive. Beneath a damp slab of bark, a cluster of Madagascar hissing cockroaches stirs. Each one gleams like polished mahogany, their segmented armor glistening with condensation, their antennae sweeping through the humid darkness in constant, trembling arcs. In this miniature jungle of decay, breath itself becomes weapon, language, and shield. The hiss comes again, louder now, echoing faintly through the compost's layers like steam escaping a kettle. But no mouth moves. The sound is not expelled through vocal cords or lips. It is forced through spiracles, small valve-like openings along the sides of the body used for breathing. Most insects exchange gases silently, their airways opening and closing in near invisibility. The Madagascar hissing cockroach, however, has turned respiration into art. By compressing its abdomen and forcing air through those spiracles, it creates a sound of such volume and control that it can startle predators many times its size. This extraordinary adaptation evolved on the island of Madagascar, where predation pressure and social competition intertwine beneath layers of decaying forest litter. Unlike their winged relatives, these cockroaches are flightless, relying on armor and stealth rather than escape. Their bodies are heavy and domed, their exoskeletons ridged like old wood, and their legs end in spines that grip bark and leaf alike. But the hiss gives them a voice in a world where most insects are mute, a voice that carries warning, challenge, and desire all through the same biological instrument. There are three primary languages in this breath-powered world: the disturbance hiss, the dominance hiss, and the courtship hiss. The disturbance hiss is the most primal, a sudden burst of air released in panic when the insect is touched or threatened. It is an acoustic flashbang, a bluff of aggression meant to jolt a predator into hesitation. Frogs, geckos, or birds searching the leaf litter are momentarily disoriented by the unexpected sound, allowing the roach to dive deeper into the moist refuge below. In experimental settings, even small mammals like tenrecs and shrews recoil from the hiss, associating the sound with something larger or more dangerous than an insect should be. The dominance hiss, by contrast, is social theatre. In the dim labyrinth beneath bark and compost, males square off for territory and mates. They inflate their bodies slightly, raising their thoraxes like shields, and begin a slow, deliberate dance of shoves and rumbles. Each hiss is measured, a pulse of air accompanied by a headbutt or a push. Their antennae lock and twist like sabers, and their horn-like pronotal ridges clack against one another in brief, percussive bursts. There are no lethal strikes, no venom or claws, only persistence and posture. The louder, more sustained hisser usually prevails, earning the right to occupy the prime feeding patch or guard a cluster of receptive females. It is combat by breath, a duel of lungs instead of blades. Then there is the courtship hiss, the most delicate and rhythmic of all. When a male encounters a female, he approaches with slow, confident steps, producing a series of shorter hisses in sequence. Each exhalation is timed, almost patterned, resembling the pulse of air one might hear from a hidden reed pipe. If the female remains, he circles her, continuing the soft expulsions while raising his abdomen to expose scent glands. These glands release pheromones that mingle with the vibration of the hiss, sound and smell woven into a single communication. When she accepts, the pair aligns end to end, connecting for mating that may last nearly half an hour. The sophistication of this system is unmatched among insects. The cockroach's spiracles are not passive vents. They are muscular valves capable of fine control. Each of the four major abdominal spiracles can be opened independently, allowing modulation of pitch and duration. This makes the Madagascar hissing cockroach one of the very few insects that produce sound through active manipulation of air rather than through stridulation, the scraping of body parts, or percussion. In evolutionary terms, it represents a parallel invention of breath-based sound, convergent with how vertebrates like reptiles or mammals vocalize. It is an extraordinary case of innovation arising from an entirely different anatomy. Yet despite their fearsome soundtrack, these creatures are among the gentlest architects of decomposition. Their home environment, the compost heap or the forest floor, is an engine of transformation. Every rotting leaf, every fallen fruit, every fragment of bark becomes substrate for life. The cockroach feeds not on filth but on what nature has left behind: the soft tissues of decayed vegetation, fungi, and microbe-rich detritus. Inside its gut, a partnership of symbiotic bacteria and protozoa breaks down cellulose, converting indigestible plant matter into usable nutrients. What emerges as waste is far from wasteful. It is nutrient-rich compost, the foundation for new growth. In this quiet economy, the hissing cockroach plays the role of recycler and soil engineer. By tunneling through decomposing material, it aerates the substrate, creating microchannels that allow oxygen and moisture to reach deeper layers. The process accelerates microbial activity, generating heat and speeding the breakdown of organic matter. In captivity, Colonies kept in compost bins can process large quantities of kitchen scraps into fertile humus, demonstrating just how efficient this biological system is. Beneath the surface, a handful of insects perform the labor of an entire miniature ecosystem. Contrary to their reputation, Madagascar hissing cockroaches are also remarkably clean. In their colonies, grooming is constant. After feeding, individuals meticulously run their antennae through their mouthparts, removing debris and coating them with a thin film of antimicrobial secretions. Their legs are brushed in sequence, their body plates polished with patient precision. This ritual is not vanity, it is survival. The warm, humid environments they inhabit are breeding grounds for mold and bacteria, yet infestations rarely occur. Studies have shown that the surface of their exoskeleton harbors beneficial microbes that inhibit the growth of harmful ones, a natural biocoating that scientists are studying for potential medical and material applications. In the wild, these cockroaches serve as a bridge between death and renewal. They are part of the detritivore guild, organisms that feed on decay to sustain the cycle of life. Alongside millipedes, termites, and springtails, they reduce fallen vegetation into particles small enough for fungi and bacteria to finish. Without such recyclers, the forest floor would choke under its own debris. Each hiss, then, is the sound of an unseen laborer defending its post in nature's factory of renewal. There is an irony in how the human world perceives them. To most, the word cockroach conjures images of contamination and filth. But the Madagascar hisser's life is the opposite of that stereotype. In their native environment, they neither invade human spaces nor feed on refuse. Their habitat is self-contained and beneficial, their role essential. Even in captivity, they exude no unpleasant odor and require no complex care, a reminder that disgust often grows from misunderstanding rather than from truth. The camera lingers now on a single male resting on a half-decayed leaf. Light glances off his carapace, highlighting the deep chestnut ridges along his back. A drop of condensation beads near a spiracle and vanishes as he exhales sharply, producing a brief puff of vapor, a ghost of his forest breath. Around him the compost hums with unseen life, mites crawling between fibers, fungal threads knitting through the soil, the low heat of decay radiating upward like the breath of the earth itself. In this world, the hiss is not merely a warning. It is the pulse of a living system, the exhalation of a species that thrives by turning waste into fertility, by defending its space with sound instead of violence, by keeping its body and its environment clean in the most literal sense. It is easy to overlook such creatures, to reduce them to caricature. But here, within this steaming microcosm of renewal, the Madagascar hissing cockroach stands as proof that evolution rewards not just the fierce or the beautiful, but the functional. When night deepens, the compost mound cools. The hissing subsides into faint, sporadic breaths. Beneath the surface, the colony settles, their antennae folding, their spiracles closing one by one. The heat of decomposition sustains them through the chill. And if a disturbance comes, the soft scrape of a predator's paw, the shift of bark above, the hiss will rise again, sudden and primal, reminding the world that even the smallest lungs can command the silence of the dark. On a quiet morning above a city balcony, the hum of traffic fades beneath another kind of vibration, one that belongs not to machines, but to wings. A flash of gold and black streaks past the railing and hovers over a row of tomato blossoms. The air thickens with an electric tremor as a carpenter bee locks its jaws onto a yellow flower and begins to shake. What follows is invisible to the naked eye, but fundamental to the continuation of countless plant species, a controlled burst of resonance known as sonication. The bee disengages its wings and fires its flight muscles at high frequency, transforming its thorax into a living tuning fork. In that moment, the pollen grains trapped inside the flower's anthers explode outward in a fine dusting of gold, coating the bee's face, legs, and chest. It is sound turned into sustenance, and one of evolution's most elegant mechanical solutions. Unlike honeybees, which gather pollen passively, carpenter bees specialize in plants that keep their pollen locked inside tubular anthers, a design found in families like Solanaceae, tomatoes, eggplants, and blueberries among them. These flowers evolved to reward only those pollinators capable of brute vibration. The relationship is ancient and reciprocal. The plant saves energy by protecting its pollen, and the bee earns exclusive access to a resource that few others can reach. Each buzz lasts less than a second. Yet in that fraction of time, the bee's thoracic muscles can oscillate up to 200 times per second, generating forces sufficient to dislodge millions of pollen grains. The act is both violent and precise, a mechanical symphony of frequency and form. Seen up close, the carpenter bee's anatomy reveals how this feat is possible. Its thorax, the central body segment housing the flight muscles, is a dense elastic capsule of chitin anchored by powerful tendons. Within, paired dorsal and ventral muscles contract alternately, deforming the exoskeleton in rapid cycles. When the wings are temporarily decoupled from the thoracic hinge, the energy of each contraction is diverted entirely into vibration rather than lift. The flower, gripped firmly by the mandibles, becomes the resonating chamber through which this energy transfers. The result is an airborne tremor that matches the acoustic frequency required to release pollen. It is engineering by instinct, tuned perfectly to the physics of each bloom. Once coated in pollen, the bee brushes the powder into dense clumps on its hind legs, where specialized hairs form concave baskets, known as scopa. A portion of this golden cargo will feed the next generation, mixed with nectar into a paste known as pollen bread. The rest will remain scattered among flowers, ensuring fertilization. Every buzz, therefore, serves two masters, the bee's brood and the plant's lineage. Follow the carpenter bee now as it drifts from balcony tomatoes toward a nearby wooden fence. The hum softens to a deep purr as it lands and begins to walk in slow circles, antennae sweeping the surface. It is searching not for food, but for home. Carpenter bees are solitary nesters, and the females choose wood not for its scent or species, but for its condition. They prefer the weathered and unpainted, timber that has aged under rain and sun until its fibers yield easily to mandibles. The chosen site may be a fence post, a bamboo stalk, or the beam of a pergola. Once found, the bee begins to excavate. The sound is faint but distinct, a dry rasping punctuated by soft thuds as wood particles scatter. Using her jaws as drills, the female chews her way into the surface, creating a perfectly circular entrance no wider than a finger. The precision of the cut has often led observers to mistake it for a human-made hole, as if drilled by miniature machinery. Inside, the tunnel extends for several inches before turning at a right angle, forming a gallery sheltered from rain and predators. Over several days, she constructs multiple chambers along this corridor, each partitioned by walls of chewed wood pulp mixed with saliva. These partitions are smooth and uniform, crafted with architectural consistency that rivals the combs of social bees, though built by a single artisan. Within each cell, she deposits a mound of pollen bread, a blend of plant starch and nectar that serves as the larval diet. On top of this, she lays a single egg, sealing the chamber before moving on to the next. By the time the tunnel is complete, it may contain half a dozen brood cells arranged in a linear sequence. The outermost cells house the youngest eggs, while the deepest hold the oldest larvae, ensuring that the newly hatched emerge last and avoid disturbing their siblings. The entire structure, though hidden within wood, functions as a self-contained nursery of precision and care. The life cycle unfolds quietly. The egg hatches into a larva that feeds on the stored pollen for several weeks, growing within the safety of its wooden chamber. When its development is complete, it pupates, the body dissolving and reorganizing into its adult form. Eventually, the young bee chews through its partition walls, emerging into the corridor as a fully formed adult. The process from egg to flight can take up to 2 months, depending on temperature and resource availability. Once free, the new generation disperses to find its own nesting sites, continuing the lineage of solitary carpenters. Around nesting sites, males patrol with restless energy. They hover near entrances or along flight paths, darting at intruders with mock ferocity. Their buzzing is deeper, their movements faster, but their weaponry non-existent. Male carpenter bees possess no sting. Their aggression is bluff, a show of bravado meant to deter rivals and impress females. The display works surprisingly well, leveraging sound and motion to create the illusion of danger. Observers who recoil at their approach are reacting not to threat, but to theater. This system of mimicry and deterrence serves the species well. Predators such as birds or spiders learn to avoid the loud, hovering shapes that often end in nothing more than vibration. For the female, the male's vigilance provides a perimeter defense, reducing the chance of parasitic wasps discovering her nest. The partnership is unspoken but effective, a loose alliance of builder and guardian bound by instinct rather than cooperation. Carpenter bees are often maligned for their choice of real estate. Homeowners worry about structural damage, but in truth, these insects rarely attack sound timber. Their mandibles cannot penetrate painted or treated wood, and they prefer already weathered or dead material. In natural ecosystems, this behavior accelerates decomposition, allowing fungi and other organisms to infiltrate and recycle old wood. Each nesting site becomes a microhabitat for mites, beetles, and small solitary wasps that exploit the abandoned galleries. Even after the carpenter bees move on, their tunnels remain as passageways for future tenants, turning the beams of fallen trees into multi-story complexes of insect life. From an ecological perspective, the carpenter bee occupies a niche that bridges two worlds: the pollination systems of flowering plants and the decomposition cycles of forest wood. Its body is built to both vibrate and carve, to draw life from living blossoms and from the bones of dead trees. Few creatures embody this duality so completely. Through sonication, it maintains the fertility of ecosystems that depend on buzz-pollinated plants. Through excavation, it accelerates the breakdown of wood, facilitating nutrient return to the soil. The hum of its flight, therefore, is the pulse of renewal at two scales: the reproduction of flowers above and the recycling of timber below. Even in cities, carpenter bees continue this ancient work. Urban gardens, balcony planters, and wooden fences have become their substitute forests. The same vibration that once served wild shrubs now sustains potted tomatoes and pepper blossoms. Observing one up close, one can feel the continuity of evolution's design, how a single behavioral mechanism bridges epochs and landscapes. In an age where pollinator populations decline under pressure from pesticides and habitat loss, carpenter bees remain among the unsung heroes of urban ecology. As afternoon sunlight spills across the balcony, the female returns to her nest. Her body glints with specks of yellow dust. Her movements are deliberate, heavy with pollen. She disappears into the small round entrance she carved days ago, vanishing into the timber like a key sliding into a lock. The vibration fades, and the scene returns to stillness. Yet within that quiet wood, life is being built in chambers of sawdust and gold, a silent continuation of a lineage that has buzzed its way through millennia of flowering seasons. The next time the tomato blossoms tremble without wind, it will be her, or her offspring, or another of their kind, the buzz-pollination locksmiths, turning sound into sustenance, wood into nursery, and vibration into the invisible rhythm that binds plants and insects in mutual creation. At the edge of a sunlit meadow, where the tall grasses sway in broken rhythm with the breeze, a web gleams like glass wire strung between the stems. It is no ordinary orb. At its center, a white zigzag band cuts vertically through the silk, bold and unmistakable. From a distance, it looks almost artificial, as if a strand of plastic ribbon had been caught and stretched by accident. But this is deliberate craftsmanship. The architect crouches motionless at the hub, a wasp spider, Argiope bruenici, her abdomen striped in vivid yellow and black bands that mimic the warning colors of hornets. She is still suspended at the center of her broadcast tower, waiting for the faintest tremor of wings. The morning light sharpens the scene. Dew clings to each radial thread, forming a halo of tiny orbs that refract the sun into a soft prism of silver and blue. Between them, the stabilimentum, that bright zigzag, glows like a stitched scar in the fabric of the web. Its purpose has puzzled scientists for generations. Why would an ambush predator, one that relies on stealth and vibration, mark its trap with such obvious contrast. Three main theories rise and fall with every new study. Some claim it lures prey by reflecting ultraviolet light that mimics floral signals. Others propose it warns birds and larger animals to avoid collision, preserving the web from accidental destruction. Still others argue it acts as a mechanical brace, a structural reinforcement that stiffens the web's hub and prevents collapse under sudden impact. In truth, all may be correct. The stabilimentum likely performs multiple roles, its value shifting with light, angle, and context. What remains certain is that spiders bearing this pattern catch both more insects and suffer fewer web losses than those without. Nature, as always, finds economy in ambiguity. What confuses the observer often serves the organism best. The wasp spider herself is a striking contradiction. Her coloration, so reminiscent of stinging wasps, is pure mimicry, a form of visual deception called Batesian mimicry. Though she carries venom, it is only potent enough to subdue insects, not vertebrates. Her survival depends on suggestion. To birds or mammals scanning the field, those alternating stripes spell caution. Yet she holds her ground not through speed or aggression, but through patience and geometry. Her web, rebuilt almost daily, is a perfect lattice of radial and spiral silk, tensioned to detect motion down to a fraction of a millimeter. Each thread serves a distinct purpose. The outer frame provides stability, the inner spirals elasticity, and the radial lines transmit vibrations to the spider's legs. At the center lies the capture zone, a soft, sticky spiral designed to ensnare. The stabilimentum runs through this heart like a signature. When sunlight catches it, the web flashes, briefly visible to passing insects that mistake it for open air or flower glint. Many pollinators, drawn by ultraviolet reflectivity, fly directly into its trap. Others, sensing the pattern's brightness, veer away, leaving the web intact. Either outcome benefits its maker. The wasp spider gains food or preserves her structure. In evolutionary calculus, both are wins. Below the web, the grass hums with life. A cricket sings. A hoverfly hovers. The air is warm enough now for motion to quicken. Somewhere, a grasshopper lands clumsily on a lower thread. The vibration travels instantly through the web, a coded signal the spider reads with the precision of an instrument. She lunges, the movement abrupt but controlled. First, the forelegs extend, then the fangs strike, injecting a measured dose of venom. The effect is chemical choreography. The venom's neurotoxins paralyze the prey's motor neurons within seconds, while digestive enzymes begin softening tissue from within. The spider retreats a short distance, allowing the poison to work, then returns with silk drawn from her spinnerets. In rapid practice loops, she wraps the grasshopper's body into a tight parcel, turning it over and over with her hind legs. Each motion aligns silk fibers with exact tension. This wrap and jab sequence is one of the fastest prey handling routines in the arachnid world, a balance between immobilization and efficiency. The victim, once a creature of muscle and jump, is now a sealed ration suspended on a separate thread, stored like food in a larder. The spider will return later, pierce the package again, and drink the liquefied contents. In this microcosm of death and recycling, nothing is wasted. As she resumes her post, her body reorients to face downward. This inverted stance allows her to monitor the web's vibration field most effectively. Each leg rests on a different strand, tuned like the strings of a harp. Through these threads, she perceives not sound but touch, a sensory web of mechanical information. Even the faint flutter of a gnat registers as a pulse of energy across her limbs. This form of mechanoreception, mediated by fine hair-like sensilla on her exoskeleton, grants her awareness of both prey and environmental change. When wind speeds rise, she tightens or slackens certain threads to maintain stability, an instinctive adjustment akin to a sailor trimming sails. Though she rules her small radius of silk, her story began far above the ground. Each summer, after mating, the female lays her eggs in silken sacs suspended among the grasses. By late summer or early autumn, hundreds of spiderlings hatch inside but remain sheltered through the cold season. When spring warmth returns, they disperse in one of nature's most delicate and spectacular migrations, ballooning. Climbing to a high blade or twig, each spiderling raises its abdomen and releases gossamer threads that catch the wind. The updraft lifts them aloft, sometimes carrying them kilometers away. Some will land in new fields, others in hedgerows or even urban gardens. This aerial dispersal allows the species to colonize fresh ground each year, maintaining its foothold across continents. In flight, these spiderlings are at the mercy of the elements. Many perish, caught in rain, consumed by swallows, or stranded in unsuitable habitats. Yet enough survive to ensure continuity. The phenomenon is so widespread that ballooning spiders have been found on oceanic islands and even at altitudes where airliners cruise. The wasp spider's lineage, therefore, depends not only on precision and camouflage, but also on chance and wind. Evolution often walks that tightrope between control and chaos. Back on the meadow edge, the adult spider remains poised at her hub. A dragonfly darts past, too fast and too strong to be caught, its wings slicing through sunlight. The spider does not move. Her strategy is patience, the energy economy of an ambush predator that wastes nothing. Over the course of a day, her web may claim several victims, or none at all. By evening, if torn or clogged with debris, she will consume her own silk, recycling the proteins to rebuild a fresh web before dawn. Few hunters are so efficient as to eat their own traps and start anew daily. The wasp spider's seasonal rhythm follows the pulse of summer. As temperatures drop toward autumn, she fattens, her abdomen swelling with eggs. By the time the first chills creep into the nights, she will have spun her final sacs, pale, parchment-like spheres hidden among the grass bases. Inside, her offspring will wait through the winter cold. The mother, her purpose complete, will perish with the frost. Her web collapses, threads drifting free, the stabilimentum unraveling into the field's decay. Yet the cycle is not an end, but a reset. Within those silken cocoons lie the next architects, ready to raise new zigzag towers when spring sunlight returns. Seen through the lens of ecology, the wasp spider represents a nexus between predator and pollinator worlds. Her web captures the very insects that sustain flowering plants, keeping populations balanced. Her mimicry echoes the appearance of wasps that protect flowers from herbivores. Her stabilimentum may deter or attract birds and bees alike. Each adaptation folds into another, weaving her existence into the broader logic of the meadow. She is not simply a predator, but a regulator, a quiet sculptor of insect abundance, an engineer maintaining equilibrium among wings and petals. As the light fades, the field dims to muted bronze. The spider remains motionless, framed against her fading zigzag banner, a sentinel in a world of motion. The stabilimentum, once radiant, now blends into shadow, its message shifting from visible signal to invisible tension. For creatures of the night, moths, beetles, small katydids, it will soon resume its deadly invitation. Every shimmer, every strand, every vibration is part of the same design, an instrument tuned to the physics of life and death. The camera pulls back, the meadow blurring into a sea of soft gold. The web disappears, hidden once more in plain sight, its architect waiting in silence. In the logic of evolution, even beauty can be lethal, and even death can sustain a living system. The wasp spider's zigzag tower stands as proof, a warning, a lure, and a masterpiece of design, spun anew each dawn in the endless weave between predator and prey. In the early light of a garden morning, a rose stem shivers under the weight of tiny movement. The petals glisten with dew, their edges painted in soft gradients of pink and gold. But it is not the bloom that draws attention. It is the battle unfolding beneath it. Aphids crowd along the stem, pale green and swollen with plant sap, forming a living chain of slow, pulsing bodies. For them, the world is abundant, the rose an endless vein of sugar water. Yet hidden among them is a predator that does not fit the storybook image of charm and luck associated with its kind. Long before the familiar red dome with black spots enters the scene, the true enforcer of the ladybug lineage arrives. a larva, spined, dark, and hungry. At first glance, it could be mistaken for a small caterpillar or an alien insect from another order entirely. Its elongated body bristles with minute spikes, its legs grasping the stem with the precision of a climber. The larva of the ladybug, though rarely noticed by casual gardeners, is the real reaper of the aphid colonies. Its jaws, curved and serrated, work like hydraulic pincers. In a single day, one larva can consume dozens, sometimes hundreds of aphids. The attack is swift and methodical. The larva seizes its prey, injects digestive enzymes, and sucks the liquefied contents, leaving behind deflated husks. It is a small but relentless predator, and its efficiency is unmatched on the micro-scale battlefield of the rose. The aphids, for all their numbers, have little defense. Their only tactic is to reproduce faster than they die. Many give live birth to daughters that are already pregnant, an evolutionary race to outbreed extinction. Yet for every generation they spawn, the ladybug larvae are there to balance the equation. This dynamic, predator and pest, destroyer and crop saver, is the foundation of an invisible economy that keeps gardens and fields alive. Without the ladybugs, aphids would drain plants dry within weeks, turning green abundance into limp decay. As the larva grows, it molts several times, shedding its exoskeleton to make room for expansion. Each stage brings sharper mandibles, stronger legs, and increased appetite. When it finally reaches maturity, it anchors itself to a leaf's underside, attaches by the tail, and begins to pupate. Over several days, the creature inside liquefies and reforms, its tissues reorganizing into the rounded symmetry of adulthood. The transformation is complete when, from the golden-brown shell of the pupa, a glossy dome emerges, orange at first, soft and pale, then gradually hardening into the iconic shell of red lacquer dotted with black. The ladybug, or more properly, the ladybird beetle, has arrived. Now the image shifts to what most people recognize, the miniature tank of the insect world, gleaming in the sunlight as it ascends the stem. Its movements are deliberate, unhurried, but beneath that gentle facade lies a suite of chemical weapons and survival tricks honed by millions of years of predation. When threatened, the ladybug relies on aposmatism, a defense built on warning color. The bright red shell is not meant to blend in, it is meant to repel. Predators, especially birds, learn through bitter experience that red and black means foul taste. The source of that aversion lies within the beetle's blood, or more precisely its hemolymph. Contained in that fluid are alkaloid toxins known as coccinelline and precoccinelline, compounds that deliver an acrid flavor potent enough to make a bird gag. If grasped, the ladybug engages its most dramatic defense, reflex bleeding. From the joints of its legs, droplets of bright yellow fluid seep out, staining the attacker's mouth or feathers with chemical distaste. This reflex not only discourages immediate predation, but also reinforces the bird's memory of the warning pattern, ensuring the next encounter ends with avoidance rather than attack. To the human observer, this act seems grotesque, blood leaking from an insect's limbs, but in evolutionary terms, it is a masterpiece of deterrence. Studies have shown that even spiders, which rely primarily on touch and taste, release ladybugs once they sense the toxin through their chelicerae. A single unpleasant mouthful can reshape predator behavior for life. In the constant arms race of survival, memory becomes as powerful a weapon as venom. The adult beetle's appetite is nearly as fierce as its larval stage. Each day it patrols the garden like a miniature tank, climbing stems and inspecting leaves for soft-bodied prey. The dome shape of its body is not merely aesthetic, it provides structural protection. The rounded surface deflects attacks, and the tough elytra, hardened forewings, shield the delicate flight wings folded beneath. This armor allows the ladybug to push through dense vegetation, withstand pecks, and even survive short drops unscathed. But beneath the polished surface lies a delicate system of sensory coordination. The antennae, short but finely tuned, detect the scent of aphid honeydew, the sugary excretion left by feeding aphids that coat stems in a sticky film. To a ladybug, that scent is both a map and a promise of food. When the beetle follows it, it finds the colony and begins its harvest, devouring aphids one by one or consuming clusters at the leaf's tip. Occasionally, it will also feed on mites, small caterpillars or insect eggs, broadening its predatory range. The balance it maintains is essential. Too few aphids, and the ladybug population declines. Too many, and plants wither. This dynamic gives rise to one of the more counterintuitive truths in ecology. A perfect garden is not one without pests, but one where predators and prey coexist in controlled tension. Gardeners who exterminate every aphid with chemical sprays unwittingly erase the very foundation that sustains their natural allies. Ladybugs, deprived of food, disperse or perish. The wise cultivator learns to tolerate a small aphid presence, understanding that this sacrifice supports a permanent defense force that requires no intervention. As summer wanes, the ladybugs shift from hunting to survival. Their bodies sense the shortening of days and falling temperatures through photoperiodic cues. They begin to seek overwintering sites, sheltered spaces where they can enter diapause, a suspended animation that preserves energy during the cold. In the wild, they gather beneath bark, in leaf litter, or within crevices of rocks. In human settlements, they often choose the dry beams of attics, the folds of window frames, or the corners of barns. Here, hundreds, sometimes thousands of beetles cluster together, their red shells overlapping in layered mosaics. The sight can be startling, a living blanket of color on wood grain, but this congregation is no accident. It is survival mathematics. Each beetle contributes to the collective insulation, sharing the microclimate of warmth created by the group. Within the cluster, metabolic rates drop and respiration slows. They feed on stored fat reserves, enduring months of dormancy until spring warmth calls them back to life. Occasionally, during unseasonal warm spells, a few individuals awaken prematurely, wandering toward windows, mistaking the indoor light for the returning sun. The phenomenon of clustering is also a social signal. Ladybugs release pheromones that attract others of their species to the same shelter, ensuring the continuity of their overwintering strategy. Some species even return to the same sites year after year, guided by scent trails and memory. When they finally disperse in spring, the survivors fan out across the landscape, re-establishing control over the reborn aphid populations. The cycle, centuries old and self-sustaining, resumes seamlessly. Beneath the simplicity of the ladybug's charm lies an intricate balance between aggression and defense, solitude and cooperation. Its life cycle threads through multiple ecological roles: predator, protector, recycler, and survivor. Every stage serves a function: the larva as the aphid reaper, the adult as the visual deterrent, the cluster as the insurance policy against extinction. In this way, the ladybug transcends the human symbolism attached to it. It is not merely a token of luck or beauty, it is a keystone insect in the quiet architecture of ecosystems. As evening light fades over the garden, the rose stem stands still once more. The aphid colony is diminished, its survivors clinging weakly to the stalk. The adult ladybug, abdomen full, cleans its antennae with forelegs, then folds its wings beneath the red dome. It will rest tonight beneath a leaf, safe from wind and rain, its body still radiating faint warmth from the day's exertion. Tomorrow it will continue its patrol, guided by instinct, hunger, and the unseen mathematics of balance that governs all life in miniature worlds. High above, in a quiet attic beam where hundreds sleep in their winter clusters, the lineage waits, a living archive of color and survival, ready to awaken when the earth tilts back toward light and warmth. When that moment comes, the aphid armies will rise again, and so will their linebackers, red shields gleaming under the new sun, ready to restore equilibrium to the green kingdoms of the small. In a forgotten corner of a garden, a fence post stands grey and hollowed, its surface cracked like old parchment. To the casual eye, it is a relic of decay, wood surrendering to time and weather. But inside, beneath the thin shell of bark, the structure hums with hidden life. Listen closely and one might catch it, the faint, rhythmic clicking of jaws at work. It is not the sound of rot itself, but of something feeding on it, the larvae of a longhorn beetle transforming dead timber into fertile soil. The camera moves inward, through the cross-section of the post. The wood is a labyrinth of pale tunnels, smooth as carved ivory and lined with powdery frass. Within one of these burrows, a larva, pale and segmented, arches its body in slow, muscular waves. Its head, dark and hardened, works methodically, scraping through cellulose with powerful mandibles. Each bite resonates like the tick of a clock, a tempo of slow consumption. What looks destructive is in fact an act of renewal. By breaking down lignin and cellulose, the larvae accelerate decomposition, releasing nutrients back into the ecosystem. Dead wood, often thought inert, is an essential reservoir of energy, and creatures like these are the key to its unlocking. The larvae of longhorn beetles, or cerambicids, live this hidden life for months, sometimes years. In forests, they target fallen trunks or weakened trees, avoiding healthy wood that still resists intrusion. The adult females are careful in choosing where to lay their eggs, guided by chemical signals that betray the scent of decay. Each egg is inserted beneath the bark, out of reach of desiccation and predators. When it hatches, the larva immediately begins its mining career, carving galleries that spiral inward as it grows. These tunnels not only recycle nutrients, but also create pathways for fungi, bacteria, and other decomposers to invade. The beetle and the microbe, though vastly different, form an unspoken alliance. The beetle opens the door, and the microbes finish the job. The wood itself provides more than food. It offers microclimate stability, cool in summer, insulated in winter, and humid enough to prevent the larva from drying out. Inside this self-made fortress, the larva is protected from most predators. Only parasitic wasps occasionally breach the walls, their ovipositors probing for hidden flesh. The larva's defense is to tunnel deeper, sealing passages with compacted frass, retreating beyond the reach of the intruder. For years, it may live unseen, converting solid wood into a honeycomb of dust and hollow veins. Then, one season, transformation begins. The larva ceases feeding and excavates a pupal chamber near the outer bark. Here, it will shed its skin one final time, reshaping into an adult. Within weeks, the shell of the pupa darkens, hardens, and splits. The new beetle, once soft and colorless, emerges armored and defined. Its body is long and cylindrical, patterned with cryptic browns or metallic blues depending on species. But what truly commands attention are the antennae, impossibly long, many times the length of the body, arcing in slow exploratory sweeps. They are both instrument and signature, the empire of the longhorn beetle. Each antenna is a masterpiece of sensory engineering. Composed of multiple articulated segments, it houses thousands of olfactory receptors capable of detecting minute chemical traces in the air. The beetle does not see its world so much as it smells it, a realm mapped in invisible plumes of scent. Through these antennae, it reads pheromones from potential mates, the aroma of fresh sap bleeding from trees, or the faint musk of predators. They act as both radar and language, extending awareness far beyond the body. When one antenna brushes a surface, the beetle adjusts its gait. When both quiver in unison, it has locked onto a target. In the fading light of evening, an adult longhorn beetle climbs the cracked fence post, its claws clicking softly on the wood grain. Its movements are deliberate but not slow, each leg equipped with sharp tarsal claws that grip irregular surfaces. The spurs on its hind legs, curved and chitinous, act like crampons, anchoring it to the bark as it navigates the vertical maze. A bird lands nearby, eyeing the beetle's glossy form. In an instant, the beetle reacts. Its antennae fold tight, the elytra snaps shut, and with a rapid contraction of thoracic muscles, it launches itself backward into the air. The takeoff is abrupt, not a graceful glide, but a kinetic leap that buys just enough distance. Its wing covers flare open, revealing membranous hind wings that unfold like translucent fans. Within moments, the insect is airborne, the antennae trailing like whips in the wind. Flight in longhorn beetles is a study in balance. Those extravagant antennae, while vital for navigation, are also cumbersome, increasing drag and weight distribution complexity. Yet the beetle's body compensates through muscular control and wing beat adjustments. The antennae themselves are not passive. They move with the rhythm of flight, counterbalancing turns and stabilizing descent. When viewed in slow motion, each wing stroke becomes a negotiation between aerodynamics and sensory function. The beetle lands again on a nearby tree trunk, folding its wings neatly beneath the protective covers.
The surface here is different, smoother, living wood. The beetle probes it briefly, then turns away. Adults of most species do not feed on fresh wood. They sip sap, chew on bark, or feed on nectar and pollen.
Their lives are brief compared to their larval stage, weeks or months at most. The purpose now is singular: reproduction. The males patrol territories marked by chemical cues, their antennae constantly sweeping the air for the scent of females. When two males meet, the encounter can turn into a physical contest, each grappling with mandibles and spiny legs. The longer antennae serve as both sensor and weapon, striking and pushing like articulated spears. Once a mate is found, the female chooses her oviposition site with surgical precision. She explores dead or dying wood, tapping the surface with her antennae and forelegs to gauge density. The smell of fungal rot, the moisture content, and the absence of resin all signal suitability. When she commits, she gnaws a small cavity and deposits an egg deep inside, sealing the entrance afterward. This act marks both the end of one cycle and the beginning of another. Though their role often goes unnoticed, longhorn beetles are crucial engineers of forest health. By targeting weakened or fallen trees, they accelerate turnover, freeing space for new growth. The tunnels they create become microhabitats for countless other organisms: spiders, mites, springtails, and even small vertebrates. Woodpeckers follow their trails, excavating larvae to feed their young. In this way, the beetle's destruction becomes a form of generosity, redistributing energy through the food web. Back in the decaying fence post, the microphone still captures faint chewing, the next generation at work. Each click and scrape is a reminder that death in nature is never an endpoint. The larvae inside are heirs to the beetle above, continuing the slow conversion of structure to soil. The post that once marked the boundary of human order is now part of a larger system, one that measures time not in seasons, but in life cycles of decay and renewal. As the night deepens, the adult beetle clings motionless to a branch. Its antennae drift with the wind, sampling invisible threads of scent. Somewhere nearby, another beetle answers, the faint pheromone trail bridging the darkness between them. Soon they will meet, and the process will begin anew. Eggs laid, larvae hatched, wood hollowed. The sound of their kind will echo again through the timber, the patient rhythm of mandibles against matter, nature's quiet industry of transformation. In the grand balance of ecosystems, few creatures embody such paradox: destroyer and rebuilder, architect of ruin and resurrection. The longhorn beetle's empire is not one of conquest but of conversion. Its antennae rule not by dominance but by perception, the longest reach in a world measured by scent and silence. Through decay it ensures continuity, through consumption it gives back fertility. And in the stillness of the night forest or the forgotten fence post, its unseen kingdom hums with the slow, enduring pulse of renewal. The forest begins to hum as daylight sinks into the horizon. The air, thick with the scent of oak and damp earth, trembles faintly with vibrations too low for human hearing. Dusk is when the giants emerge, not of myth or fur, but of chitin and horn. On a bleeding oak, where sweet sap seeps through a wound in the bark, the stag beetles gather. Their silhouettes rise and fall against the amber light, their elongated mandibles glinting like polished obsidian. To those who witness them for the first time, they seem almost unreal, miniature monsters born from ancient timber, performing rituals of strength and survival that have not changed for millennia. The oak itself is alive in every sense. Its trunk bears scars where branches have broken or woodpeckers have drilled, and through these fissures, sap oozes in slow, honey-colored beads. This sugary exudate is a magnet for life. Moths, flies, and beetles converge to drink, forming a nocturnal bar hidden beneath the canopy. The stag beetles arrive last, heavy and deliberate, their wing cases clattering as they land. The males are unmistakable. Their oversized mandibles curve outward and upward, resembling the branching antlers of deer, hence their name. These are not weapons for feeding, but for combat, a product of sexual selection rather than predation. As the camera closes in, two males face each other on the oak's scarred surface. Their antennae sweep the air, tasting the pheromones that advertise both rivals and females. The tension builds silently before the inevitable clash. They rear up, tarsal claws hooking deep into bark for traction, and then they grapple, locking horns in a slow-motion display of brute precision. Each tries to lift the other, prying and twisting, the muscles in their thoraxes straining under the exoskeleton's armor. The battle is not one of violence in the usual sense. There is no tearing or stabbing. Instead, it is a contest of leverage and endurance. The loser is not killed but thrown. When one beetle finds the right grip, it arches its body and flips the other into the air. The fallen male tumbles to the leaf litter below, wings buzzing futilely, his dominance revoked. This spectacle of strength plays out again and again through the summer evenings. For every victor there is the promise of access to the sap and to the females drawn by its scent. The oak's wound serves as both arena and banquet hall, a microcosm where evolution's oldest dramas repeat with chemical precision. The pheromone trail that leads here is invisible but potent, stretching through the undergrowth like a biological highway. Females, smaller and less ornate, follow it from afar, guided by receptors on their antennae tuned to the faintest molecular trace. When a female arrives, the tone changes. The males, now locked in proximity to opportunity, shift from brawling to posturing. The dominant male lowers his antlers and spreads his legs wide, blocking access to the sap flow while maintaining contact with her using his antennae. The courtship is tactile and cautious. Unlike many insects, stag beetle mating requires cooperation. His mandibles are too large and unwieldy for force. Instead, he must convince her with persistence and timing. Her acceptance depends less on brute size than on balance. The ideal male possesses mandibles large enough to demonstrate strength, but not so oversized that movement becomes clumsy. Evolution here plays a delicate game, rewarding not the biggest, but the best adapted. The sap bar is more than a social hub. It is a nutritional lifeline. Adult stag beetles feed almost exclusively on tree sap and the juices of overripe fruit. They cannot chew solid food. Their mouths are adapted for lapping, not biting. The energy they gain is minimal, just enough to power short flights and reproductive effort. Their true feeding occurred long before this night, during their larval years spent hidden beneath the forest floor. Beneath the oak, in the cool darkness of the soil, the next generation already waits. The larvae, pale and crescent-shaped, feed on decaying wood, not the living tree, but the softened remains of fallen branches and roots. Their jaws are thick and strong, capable of grinding through lignified fibers. It can take several years for them to grow, passing through multiple molts as they transform the detritus into nutrient-rich humus. These larvae are among the forest's most efficient recyclers, turning dead timber into the raw material of new life. Without them, fallen wood would accumulate faster than fungi and microbes could decompose it. Each larva is a tiny alchemist, converting carbon locked in wood into organic matter that feeds the soil. After 3 to 6 years underground, the larvae pupate within earthen chambers. When they finally emerge as adults, they live for only a few short weeks, a single summer, if fortunate. Most never travel far from the wood that birthed them, and their flight, though powerful, is awkward. The buzzing growl of a stag beetle in flight is unmistakable, a deep, droning vibration that seems disproportionate to its size. The long antennae and heavy mandibles act like counterweights, forcing the beetle to maintain constant corrections mid-air. Yet this ungainly flight is vital, linking isolated patches of woodland across fragmented landscapes. In many parts of Europe, stag beetles once filled the summer dusk with their heavy drone, but their numbers have dwindled. Modern landscapes often lack the fallen wood that sustains their larvae. The tidy removal of dead branches, the paving of forest edges, and the isolation of wooded areas by urban barriers all break the continuity of what ecologists call dark corridors, the shaded, humid pathways that connect beetle habitats. Without these corridors, populations become trapped, their genetic diversity shrinking until local extinction follows. Conservationists now recognize the importance of leaving fallen timber to decay naturally, of restoring the messy, imperfect forests that life depends upon. In that sense, saving the stag beetle means embracing the aesthetic of rot, understanding that death in a forest is simply another form of growth. Back at the sap flow, the scene has settled. The victorious male guards his position while the female feeds beside him unbothered. The air hums with the faint buzz of other beetles arriving from the distance. Nearby, bats flicker through the twilight, their echolocation clicks searching for softer-bodied prey. The stag beetle's armor and bulk grant it relative safety, though owls and hedgehogs occasionally claim the unwary. Each movement carries the weight of finality. For the adult, time is measured not in days but in chances. Each flight, each duel, each sip of sap, potentially the last. A gentle breeze stirs the canopy, carrying the scent of oak resin and warm soil. The camera pans upward through the branches, revealing the full grandeur of the tree that sustains them. Its roots, thick as limbs, cradle generations of beetle larvae beneath. Its wounds, dripping with sap, feed the adults above. In this vertical ecosystem, nothing is wasted. The oak bleeds, the beetles drink, the soil thrives. The system is self-renewing, as long as decay is allowed its rightful place. When the night deepens fully, the stag beetles disperse. The males lift off one by one, wings unfolding with the groan of a small engine. Their flights are clumsy but determined, antennae sweeping the dark air like radar arrays. They move from tree to tree, following pheromone plumes invisible to us but vivid in their chemical world. For a few brief weeks each year, they reign over the twilight, not as conquerors, but as caretakers of the old wood, keepers of the forest's cycle of death and regeneration. By dawn, the oak stands silent again. The sap has crusted into amber streaks. The combatants have vanished into the undergrowth. Beneath the surface, the larvae continue their quiet work, their mandibles echoing faintly through the soil. The legacy of the stag beetle endures in the unseen, in the slow conversion of rot to renewal, of fallen trees to living earth. In the end, the forest remembers not the battles or the displays, but the process itself, the unbroken chain of transformation. The stag beetle, with its armored body and antlered head, is both symbol and participant in that eternal exchange. It reminds us that beauty often hides within decay, that strength can serve the cycle of softness, and that even the most imposing forms of life are, at their core, servants of the soil. Mid-morning in a quiet courtyard, the air is still enough that each flower holds its shape, unmoved by wind. A cluster of petunias spills over a window box, their pastel trumpets glowing in the sun. Suddenly, a blur of motion disrupts the calm, a shape too large for a bee, too small for a bird, hovering in the air with improbable precision. Its wings beat so rapidly that they blur into transparency, the body suspended perfectly in place. The sound it makes is not a buzz but a hum, a soft, continuous vibration that seems to hover as steadily as the creature itself. The hummingbird hawk-moth, Macroglossum stellatarum, has arrived, and with it, the illusion of avian flight in miniature. Few insects can match its agility or its ability to confound perception. To the casual observer, this day-flying moth looks and behaves so much like a hummingbird that the resemblance has earned it its name. It is a master of sustained hovering, a talent shared by only a handful of insect lineages, including certain hoverflies and dragonflies. But where others glide or pause briefly, this moth hangs in the air with the control of a drone, its wings drawing tight figure-8 patterns that create lift on both the upstroke and the downstroke. Each wing beat is an equation solved in real time, balancing thrust, drag, and gravity in a dynamic system that defies simple mechanics. At rest, the moth's wingspan is modest, roughly 5 centimeters, yet it can beat those wings up to 85 times per second. The air beneath them becomes a living scaffold, a pattern of vortices spinning and collapsing so quickly that the moth appears weightless. This is more than speed, it is control. Sensors across its body, especially the gyroscopic halteres, modified hindwings, detect angular shifts in milliseconds, feeding corrections to the flight muscles. If a gust of wind passes or a rival insect darts too close, the moth recalibrates instantly, adjusting pitch and roll with imperceptible finesse. The result is flight so stable that it can hold position at a single bloom for minutes without contact, sipping nectar through its extended proboscis while the rest of its body remains perfectly poised. The proboscis itself is a marvel, a straw-like tongue that coils neatly beneath the head when not in use and extends to lengths exceeding the moth's own body. With it, the hawk-moth can feed from flowers that are inaccessible to most pollinators. Its vision, too, is extraordinary. Unlike the majority of moths, which navigate by night using dim starlight, this species has evolved for daylight. Its large compound eyes are tuned to perceive ultraviolet and blue wavelengths, allowing it to see the nectar guides that many flowers display as hidden maps. In motion, it can track colors and shapes at high speed, learning which patches offer the richest reward. This ability, called trapline foraging, allows it to establish mental circuits between profitable flower groups, visiting them in consistent sequence, much like a postal route. Each return trip is timed to match the nectar replenishment rate of the plants, an evolutionary efficiency that transforms feeding into a kind of spatial arithmetic. On this sunny day, the moth hovers 50 centimeters from the window glass, visiting each petunia in order. Its tongue dips and retracts, a rhythmic motion synchronized with its hovering pulses. The camera draws close enough to see the fine scales along its abdomen shimmering copper in the light. The body flexes, compensating for air turbulence from its own wings. The motion is continuous, seamless. Flight as mathematics in motion, executed by instinct honed over millions of years. But this ballet is not performed in isolation. The airspace around flowers is a crowded marketplace. Competing pollinators, bees, butterflies, and even other moths vie for the same resource. Among them, the hawk-moth's agility gives it an edge, but also draws attention. A wasp, patrolling the same territory, darts in abruptly. The hawk-moth reacts with instant throttle adjustment, a burst of acceleration that doubles its wing beat amplitude, pulling it backward in less than 1/10 of a second. The wasp overshoots, missing by a fraction of its body length. The moth steadies itself, hovering again as though nothing happened. Its resilience to such aerial harassment lies in its nervous system's speed. Neural transmission in insects operates on microsecond scales, but in the hawk-moth, this responsiveness is fine-tuned for predictive control. It doesn't merely react, it anticipates, reading shifts in air pressure through microscopic hairs along its thorax and abdomen. The evolutionary pathway to such precision lies in the moth's lineage. Hawk moths, members of the family Sphingidae, are among the most advanced flyers in the Lepidoptera order. Their muscular thoraxes occupy nearly half their body volume, filled with asynchronous flight muscles that operate on stored elastic energy rather than direct nerve impulses. This allows sustained, rapid wing beats without exhausting metabolic reserves. To fuel this, they rely on a nectar diet rich in simple sugars, which they metabolize with remarkable efficiency. A single hawk moth can consume its body weight in nectar within a day, burning calories at a rate comparable to a small bird. Their metabolism runs so hot that thermoregulation becomes essential. Before taking flight, they often perform a warm-up routine, vibrating their wings in short bursts to elevate body temperature. Once airborne, they maintain thermal balance by circulating hemolymph, insect blood, through their thorax, dissipating heat through surface radiation and rapid convective exchange. As the day progresses, the moth's foraging route expands. It moves from window boxes to lavender clusters below, its movements precise enough to land repeatedly within the same few centimeters of each flower. Studies have shown that these moths possess exceptional spatial memory, retaining information about flower locations for days. Their ability rivals that of many birds and exceeds that of most insects. This memory, combined with color recognition, allows them to optimize their energy intake across time and space, a rare cognitive adaptation in creatures with such small brains. The camera follows one individual as it transitions from light to shadow, crossing from open courtyard into the dappled shade of a fig tree. Here the light shifts, and so do its behaviors. The moth's eyes, with their specialized ommatidia, adjust instantly to changing illumination. In dim conditions, the facets increase sensitivity, maintaining visual acuity at speeds where other insects would be blinded. This adaptation enables crepuscular feeding, extending the foraging window into dusk when competition lessens. It also aids in predator avoidance. Small birds, especially warblers and flycatchers, often attempt to snatch these moths mid-air. The hawk-moth's countermeasure is not escape through distance, but through unpredictability. It changes direction with erratic agility, performing micro-zigzags that break the predictive targeting patterns of its hunters. Despite its speed, the hawk-moth's life is measured in brevity. Adults live only a few weeks, though their migratory range is astonishing. Populations from southern Europe and North Africa travel northward each spring, following waves of blooming plants across the continent. Some individuals reach as far as Scandinavia, flying hundreds of kilometers in a single season. Unlike most moths, they do not overwinter as adults. The next generation hatches from eggs laid on bedstraw and related plants along their migratory routes. The caterpillars, green and horn-tailed, feed on these leaves through summer, pupating within soil cocoons, before emerging as the next wave of aerial acrobats. Migration, for them, is not a conscious journey but a generational relay, an inherited rhythm tied to temperature and floral availability. As the camera returns to the courtyard, the moth hovers once more at the same window box it visited earlier. The flowers, replenished with nectar since morning, glisten under the afternoon sun. The insect approaches from the same angle, proving that its spatial memory remains intact even after hours of activity. This consistency forms part of its efficiency, minimizing wasted flight, conserving energy, and maximizing intake, all governed by instinctive mathematics encoded in its nervous system. A gentle breeze stirs. The petunias sway, and for the first time the moth's hovering wavers. Instantly, it compensates, increasing its wing amplitude and shifting its tail angle to counter the drift. In slow motion, the precision becomes visible. The figure-8 motion tightens, the body tilts slightly forward, and the balance returns. It is mechanical artistry without consciousness, evolution's perfect calibration between structure and function. The scene widens again to include the courtyard's broader ecology. Bees move clumsily from bloom to bloom, butterflies flutter in less direct arcs, and flies buzz erratically through the air. Amid them all, the hawk-moth alone maintains a posture of mastery, neither touching nor perching, sustained entirely by motion. Its wings are invisible to the naked eye, but the hum remains, a steady, unwavering note. This sound, though subtle, is one of nature's most complex signatures of flight, a harmonic product of physics, muscle, and endurance. As the sun lowers, the light warms, and the moth's bronze body glows against the backdrop of the window. One final visit, one last sip. Then, as shadows lengthen, it rises vertically and vanishes beyond the courtyard wall, wings fading into silence. What remains is the lingering awareness that the air, though invisible, is alive with hidden equations. Every gust and hover, a calculation performed by muscle and instinct. In its small hovering form, the hummingbird hawk-moth embodies the union of art and precision that evolution can achieve. A creature that drinks from flowers while defying gravity, that migrates across continents while weighing only a fraction of a gram, that lives for weeks yet refines flight to near perfection. 50 centimeters from a window box it hovers, a testament to the quiet complexity that turns physics into life. The rainforest begins to dim long before the sun disappears. Under the canopy, light is rationed, filtered through layers of green until it becomes a shifting twilight. In this subdued world, color and motion trade places. Where brightness fades, pattern takes command. On a banana leaf near the forest's edge, a large butterfly lands in near silence. When its wings close, the world seems to vanish behind bark brown camouflage. When they open, the illusion reverses. Two enormous eyes stare back from its hind wings, glistening with reflected light. It is the owl butterfly Caligo, master of mimicry, survivor of dusk. Each wing bears a circular eye spot almost the size of a coin, complete with radial striations that imitate the iris and pupil of a vertebrate predator. In the faint light, the illusion deepens. Moisture on the leaf refracts the soft glow of the setting sun across the wing's surface, creating a catchlight that mimics the living gleam of an eye. Birds, whose brains are wired to lock onto faces and gaze patterns, hesitate. In that fraction of indecision, the butterfly has already dropped behind the leaf or drifted deeper into shadow. The deception is not beauty, it is geometry and psychology, sculpted by evolution to interrupt attack. Eye spots are a language written for predators. Many species display them, from moths to fish to frogs, but few wield them with the precision of Caligo. When viewed head-on, the patterns align perfectly, forming the gaze of an unseen creature. From another angle, the illusion collapses into abstract color. This duality is critical. The mark must be startling but not continuously conspicuous. Too constant, and it would draw attention. Too subtle, and it would fail to startle. The owl butterfly's pattern solves this paradox through scale and contrast, bold enough to shock, but only revealed in motion, like a flashing warning sign. The wings themselves tell the story of survival in fine print. Many bear tears and nicks, but almost all occur near the lower margins, far from the vital thorax. The damage speaks to the success of another adaptation, decoy targeting. When a bird strikes, its beak aims for the apparent eyes, not the center of mass. What it catches are the expendable edges of the wings. The butterfly tumbles, escapes, and lives to fly again. Studies on bird behavior confirm this pattern. Predators often divert their strikes toward false eyes, proof that deception can shape both attacker and prey. As dusk deepens, the forest grows louder. Frogs, crickets, and nightjar calls merge into an acoustic fog. While most butterflies have already sought refuge for the night, Caligo is just beginning its shift. It is one of the few large butterflies to adopt a crepuscular schedule, flying in the hour between daylight and full darkness. This timing grants it a strategic advantage. The day's raptors, like tanagers and motmots, retire as the nocturnal bats and owls are only beginning to stir. For this narrow window, competition and predation both dip, leaving the airspace free for giants of the dusk. In flight, the owl butterfly is unmistakable. With a wingspan approaching 15 centimeters, it drifts heavily, more glider than flyer. The undersides of the wings resemble tree bark, marbled in shades of umber and gray that blend seamlessly into trunks and lianas. When startled mid-air, it performs an evasive maneuver that seems too slow to be effective, dropping suddenly, then gliding in a short arc before clinging motionless to a surface. Yet this fall is precisely timed to exploit bird behavior. Many avian hunters anticipate upward escape. The downward glide in low light breaks that prediction, leaving the pursuer disoriented. The owl butterfly's choice of habitat and diet further refine its dusk routine. Adults prefer open clearings near fruiting trees, where fermenting bananas, mangoes, or figs leak sweet nectar from overripe pulp. Their feeding is deliberate. The proboscis uncoils into the soft fruit, drawing sugar-rich fluid, while the butterfly's body remains nearly still. Occasionally, multiple individuals gather at a single feeding site, their wings overlapping like folded fans. The chemical cues from rotting fruit act as both attractant and social signal, a convergence point in the half-light where feeding and mating opportunities intersect. Yet for all the spectacle of the adult, the story of Caligo begins in greater strangeness. The caterpillar, thick-bodied and mottled green, carries its own form of deception. When disturbed, it arches and sways its front segment, revealing a pattern of diagonal stripes and false eyes that transform its head into a serpent's likeness. The motion completes the illusion. The caterpillar performs a slow, deliberate sway, mimicking the defensive posture of a small snake. Many vertebrate predators, including birds and small mammals, halt instantly at the sight. To them, movement combined with pattern signals danger more convincingly than color alone. The bluff need not last long. Hesitation is all the caterpillar requires to vanish among leaves. Its diet is specialized, often tied to the leaves of banana, heliconia, and other broad-leafed plants. The larvae feed at night, consuming large sections of foliage while remaining motionless during the day. Their coloration shifts as they age. Younger instars are brighter green to blend with fresh leaves, while older ones darken to match the tougher, more fibrous layers near the base. This adaptive camouflage, coupled with behavioral mimicry, keeps survival rates surprisingly high for such conspicuous feeders. When the caterpillar reaches its final size, it pupates beneath a leaf or on a stem, forming a chrysalis that resembles a withered pod. Even here, deception continues. The surface of the pupa is irregular and matte, covered in fine dust-like textures that mimic fungal growth or lichen. To a predator scanning visually, it is indistinguishable from plant debris. Inside, however, one of nature's most complex transformations unfolds. Tissues liquefy, organs reorganize, and the muscular system of flight begins to take shape. Within 2 weeks, the chrysalis splits, and the adult emerges into the dim world it was born to dominate. The physiology that allows Caligo to operate in twilight is finely tuned. Its compound eyes contain a greater proportion of large ommatidia, the individual visual units, which capture more light than those of strictly diurnal butterflies. This comes at a cost to resolution. Fine details blur, but motion becomes vivid. The moth-like sensitivity of its vision bridges day and night, allowing it to detect approaching threats and navigate complex vegetation under conditions that would blind most butterflies. Thermoregulation too plays a role. By flying at dusk, the owl butterfly avoids overheating, a common problem for large-bodied species in tropical daylight. Its slow metabolism suits the cooler air, conserving energy for long glides rather than rapid fluttering. Predators that share its crepuscular schedule are not blind to its tricks. Frogs strike from below, bats detect the faint echoes of wing beats, and spiders weave webs along known flight paths. Yet even these hunters often fail, undone by misdirection or by the butterfly's unpredictability. The owl butterfly's defensive repertoire extends beyond its eye spots. When alarmed at close range, it flashes its wings open suddenly, producing both a visual shock and a rush of air. Some species even emit a faint hiss as air passes between the wing scales, a startle mechanism enhanced by sound. In nature, hesitation is victory measured in heartbeats. Conservationists now recognize Caligo not just as a marvel of mimicry, but as an indicator of forest health. Its life cycle depends on intact understory plants for caterpillars, fruiting trees for adults, and humid microclimates to sustain its pupae. Habitat fragmentation and pesticide drift threaten each stage. In regions where deforestation clears the buffer zones around banana plantations, the butterfly's population plummets. Reintroducing native fruit trees and preserving riparian corridors can reverse the decline, showing how even a single species can serve as a gauge for ecosystem balance. Back in the forest clearing, the last light fades. The owl butterfly remains motionless on its perch, its wings closed, eye spots hidden. In the half-dark, its brown pattern merges with the bark completely, leaving no hint of the creature's earlier spectacle. Above, a pair of nightjars swoop silently, their calls echoing through the humid air. The butterfly does not move. Its stillness is its strongest defense now. In the morning, the bright birds will return, searching for motion, color, and shape. But when they land on this same trunk, they will see only bark and shadow. The true eyes of the forest belong to the owl butterfly, watching without gaze, surviving by illusion, and reminding us that in the race between perception and deception, sight itself is never the final truth. A still pond holds its breath beneath the afternoon sun. The surface, glassy and calm, mirrors the overhanging reeds so perfectly that the line between water and air seems to vanish. Then, a disturbance. Tiny dimples appear, moving in perfect sync across the mirrored plain. The source is not wind or falling debris, but life. A water strider glides effortlessly across the surface, leaving behind a trail of expanding ripples that sketch invisible words in liquid geometry. This is the realm of Gerridae, insects that have turned the boundary between air and water into a permanent highway. At first glance, the water strider appears to be defying physics. Its long, spindly legs rest atop the surface film without breaking it, as though standing on invisible glass. The explanation lies in the properties of both the water and the insect. The surface of any body of water forms a thin, elastic layer, the result of hydrogen bonds between molecules, what scientists call surface tension. To most creatures, this tension is negligible. To the strider, it is a foundation. Its legs are not smooth, but covered in a dense forest of microscopic hairs, each tipped with a waxy coating that traps air. This hydrophobic armor repels water completely, ensuring that not a single droplet adheres. When the strider moves, its feet press gently downward, creating small dimples, visible as circular shadows under the sun, that hold its weight like miniature trampolines. The balance between gravity and buoyancy is delicate but exact. Each leg distributes the insect's mass across a wide span, reducing pressure at any single point. In slow motion, every step is a conversation with molecular forces, a press, a release, a ripple. The strider's movement seems frictionless, yet it is powered by physics as much as muscle. Its mid-legs, the strongest pair, stroke the surface backward in rapid motions, using the water's resistance like a springboard. The body glides forward, carried by momentum and sustained by surface tension. The front legs act as sensors, poised to strike prey, while the rear legs steer and stabilize. This six-limbed choreography has been refined over millions of years into one of nature's most precise propulsion systems. On a calm pond, the strider's domain extends from open water to the narrow corridors of the meniscus, that upward curve where liquid meets solid edge. Here, at the border of tension, the insect faces one of its most complex challenges, climbing without sinking. When approaching a floating leaf or lily pad, the strider must ascend the meniscus without puncturing it. To do this, it leans backward slightly, shifting its weight to its rear legs, which push against the inclined surface film. The movement is slow, deliberate, almost mechanical. The insect walks up the slope of water as if scaling an invisible wall. Once on the pad, it cleans its legs meticulously, wiping away any particles that could compromise its hydrophobic coating. Clean legs mean survival. Even a few grains of dust could allow water to cling, pulling the insect under. Beneath this graceful surface existence lies a life of predation and peril. The water strider is a hunter, feeding on insects that fall onto the water's surface, mosquitoes, midges, and other small victims caught in the trap of tension. Its front legs, shorter and more robust than the others, act as raptorial arms. When a struggling mosquito larva breaks the surface, the vibrations travel instantly across the pond. The strider senses the disturbance through mechanoreceptors located at the tips of its legs, capable of detecting even the faintest ripple. It pivots, triangulating the source with astonishing precision, then skims forward with a burst of acceleration. The strike is swift. Front legs clamp the prey, piercing the surface film without breaking through. The strider injects digestive enzymes through needle-like mouthparts, liquefying the soft tissues before sucking out the contents. The victim's body deflates like a punctured raft, sinking at last, empty, motionless, irrelevant to the perfect stillness that follows. Ripples are more than hunting cues. Among water striders, they form a language. Each leg movement creates concentric waves that radiate outward, carrying coded messages across the pond. A rapid burst of small ripples can signal aggression, a territorial warning to rivals. A slower, rhythmic pulse may serve as a courtship call, a vibration that females recognize from several body lengths away. Scientists studying these ripple codes have found that each species has a unique frequency and pattern, like a dialect of motion written in water. During mating season, males use this communication system to attract partners while deterring competitors, a delicate balance of invitation and intimidation. In scenes of courtship, the water's surface becomes a living stage. A male strider approaches a female with measured pulses of ripples, pausing between each as though waiting for permission. If accepted, he climbs onto her back, not as a gesture of violence, but of persistence. The coupling can last for hours, a test of both endurance and balance. Predators such as fish lurk below, drawn by the vibrations. To survive, males adjust their signaling, tapping in patterns that mimic background noise, disguising their presence from the hunters beneath. It is a dangerous compromise to communicate without revealing, to love without being eaten. The ecosystem of a pond is both sanctuary and battlefield. Beneath the surface, beetle larvae and fish patrol the shadows. Above, dragonflies and swallows dive with lethal precision. The strider's ability to sense disturbance in real time is its shield against ambush. Its mechanosensory hairs, called trichobothria, can detect displacements smaller than a millimeter. In effect, the insect sees the world through vibrations, reading every motion across the surface like a blind reader interprets Braille. This perception extends to self-generated ripples as well. Each step sends feedback about position and speed, creating a feedback loop of motion and awareness. The result is a kind of sensory equilibrium, an insect that not only walks on water but reads it. Though their existence may seem specialized, water striders thrive in nearly every region on Earth except the open ocean and the frozen poles. Their evolutionary success stems from versatility. They can inhabit still ponds, flowing streams, and even coastal estuaries. Some species have developed winged forms to colonize new bodies of water after droughts. Others are flightless, investing instead in speed and leg length. Their hydrophobic leg structures vary subtly among species depending on habitat. Shorter hairs for calm waters, denser coatings for turbulent ones. Evolution here operates not through broad leaps, but through microscopic refinements, each one perfecting the dialogue between leg and liquid. In urban ponds and roadside ditches, the story continues. Even amid pollution and runoff, water striders persist, their resilience tied to their detachment from the water itself. They are never submerged, rarely wetted, and largely untouched by toxins that disperse below. Yet they remain crucial to aquatic ecosystems, controlling mosquito populations and serving as prey for amphibians and birds. In their quiet efficiency, they embody a principle of nature. Mastery of an environment often depends not on dominating it, but on cooperating with its physics. As the camera widens, the curbside pond reflects the evening sky, its surface turning from gold to steel blue. Dozens of water striders now glide across it, their shadows lengthening, their ripples intersecting in intricate interference patterns. To the untrained eye, it is chaos, lines and circles colliding, breaking, reforming. To the striders, it is conversation, navigation, and survival all at once. One climbs a meniscus to rest on a floating leaf, pausing to clean its legs once more. Another darts forward, seizing a gnat that has drifted too close. Around them, the reflections of buildings and trees ripple and distort, caught in the same fluid web they command with ease. Night descends. The air stills again, and the pond resumes its mirror-like calm. Beneath the surface, tadpoles stir. Above, a single water strider remains, suspended between worlds. Its reflection stares upward from the water's skin, the two forms, real and mirrored, separated only by a fraction of a millimeter and the force of surface tension. It steps once more, and the ripples spread outward, delicate and fleeting, writing one final line on the liquid page before fading into nothing.